Hey everybody, welcome to the Anthony and Todd Show. I'm your host Trevor.
And I'm Vincent.
And today we're going to be taking a look at the latest project from Westside Gunn, Pray for Paris. Pray for the parents.
This is a God's dream.
Westside Gunn is a Buffalo MC and founder of Griselda Records. He's a brother of Conway the Machine and cousin to Benny the Butcher.
Not friend. I got called out before calling him his friend.
They're more than friends, they're family. The three of them make up Griselda Records, which again founded them in Buffalo. They're really trying to put Buffalo on the map for the hip-hop scene. They recently signed to Rock Nation, and they had, or have, a publishing deal with Shady Records, which was Eminem's label, and late last year released What Would Machine Gun Do on Shady Records. Westside Gunn, however, we've been covering him in his solo career the longest of the three on the show here, starting with Supreme Blientele back in 2018, as well as his other full-length album Flygod is an Awesome God back in the summer of 2019. He also released the seventh mixtape in his series, Hitler Wears Hermes, back in 2019 as well. This latest project, Pray for Paris, is his third studio album, but his 25th overall project. He was inspired by his recent trip to Paris for Fashion Week earlier this year in January. It was his first time in the city, and he said he went to all these different fashion shows, and the energy was just crazy, and he was inspired to make an EP. So he wrote 6 songs in 2 3-hour sessions, and then when he got back to the US, he decided that he wanted to make this like a full-length album. This has been probably the most hyped, personally, that I've ever been for a Westside project, but also I think the most hype that he's got on the internet so far. I've seen Twitter going crazy for this album the past week or so. They were ready for this
because the Shady Records deal and having like a debut album under that with What Would Machine Gun Do allowed them to have a certain level of hype, create a new fan base of sorts. And what I was interested in this to see what would happen if West Guy would continue to be a little bit tame, because honestly, he was kind of the worst part of What Would Machine Gun Do. I thought he was pretty watered down to his usual self. And on this, I think he actually is the most loud version of himself yet. I think he manages to combine all of his like interests into like one bevel, where whether it's hip hop or wrestling or fashion or art or like high culture is like all combined into like one thing on this.
Yeah, so let's break this down a little bit. Our first track, 400 million plus tax, is literally just a sample taken from the auction of Da Vinci's painting Salvator Mundi, which is the most expensive painting ever sold at auction. I think it really sets the scene for the kind of opulence that's going to come across in this entire album. It goes right into No Vacancy, which is produced by DJ Muggs, with these really jangly keys over block chords that make him seem so like rich and wealthy. It gives me very like fancy hotel lobby vibes, but Westside over the top of it is just extremely dark and braggadocious. It really sets the scene for what's to come on this project.
The collaborations with the rest of the Griselda crew, Conway and Benny, on tracks George Bondo and Allah Sent Me, actually turn out to be very fruitful. They're very different style to their last album, What Would Machine Gun Do. On Allah Sent Me, they're switching out with one another on the verse, like passing each other, only having a couple lines to themselves before another member comes in and swoops in and switches over. And on George Bondo, their chemistry is a lot more thicker on here, and I think it has a more elegant style. It doesn't feel as brash. Like, I think their intentions are still brash, but the style, the background is very expensive and classy on here. It doesn't feel like moody background. It feels very well intentioned with these flourishing keys throughout the entire track.
Next was 327 with Billy Esco on the hook. Also features from Joey Badass and Tyler the Creator, some big names in the rap field. It's extremely braggadocious over this very smoky vibraphone sample, and I actually really like the use of a chorus. Westside and the rest of the Griselda boys aren't really one for having like hooks or choruses in their tracks, but Billy Esco over the I swear Paris will be prayed for, going into Joey Badass's verse, and Tyler the Creator I think was one of my hugest surprises on here. When I heard that Tyler was going to hop on a track, I was extremely surprised, but I think that he really channels a lot of his old style on here. Vincent, you were saying this sounds kind of like Cherry Bomb-esque, and I have to agree.
It's not full edge like Wolf or Goblin, but it is a little bit watered down in some extensions. Also, his harmonies with his with the intro, how he harmonizes over himself is really cool. But as time goes on, it kind of filters into an ego style performance. He is more heavily focused on rhyme scheme and personality, and to have a lot more fun in his verse than to be a rough around the edge character.
Moving into French Toast with Wale and Joyce Wright. Gunn said he made this track for the ladies because he's tired of seeing 1,000 dudes at his shows. And here, I think, is one of the first times that we hear Westside Gunn attempt singing on here. His verse is actually pretty short in retrospect. He's only got a few lines, but uses this really heavy reverb effect on his voice before he goes into singing with Joyce Rice. And I actually really like this track. It comes off almost kind of cute and shows a softer side of him.
Westside Gunn's singing I found to be kind of amateurish, like a Lil Yachty in some extent. Like I'm thinking Little Boat One. Like there's some like flat element to it that makes it interesting, that makes it like relatable in a sense. And Lil Yachty and Little Boat One had like a similar thing where it was like, it's like he's doing the best that he can and it shows.
I think it's kind of endearing almost, him just trying his best to sing on here. Like not everybody has like the same singing abilities, but I'm a firm believer that like everybody can sing, and I think that even he tries his best, and I really enjoy hearing him. Like I think he knows that he's not trained or anything, but I really enjoy listening to him attempt.
And then the fact that he follows that up with a Shawn Michaels sample saying that he isn't a singer, but he is the showstopper, I thought was like a perfect, like it's self-aware that he knows that he isn't the best singer out there. And also the fact that he has Joyce Rice in the background, like filling in the spaces, really complements him and makes him look a lot more smoother than he actually is.
Moving on to $500 Ounces with Freddie Gibbs and Rock Marciano. It's produced by Alchemist with a really old soul sample. It's extremely smoky and I think like a timeless sample that he uses. Freddie Gibbs just kills it. He sounds so cool and collective, and I know that he really thrives over samples like this. He is obviously a connoisseur of soul music. Just look at the cover of his Freddie mixtape, the Teddy Pendergrass inspiration there. But yeah, he just kills it. And then Rock Marciano, this is one of the best rock verses I've heard in a long while. It's way better than the last time that him and Westside Gunn collabed. The next track, Versace, was produced by Jay Versace, which I thought was a huge surprise for me. Jay Versace is like a Vine star YouTuber. Now he's on TikTok, and I guess he just like DM'd Westside Gunn out of the blue and told him that he wanted to send him some beats, and Westside Gunn said he was like laughing and thought it would be trash, but now he says he's got like 30 Jay Versace beats that he's like waiting to work on. I think this is one of the coolest production moments on this entire project, with the awesome like gospel choir sample and Westside Gunn just dancing over top of it. It's incredibly smooth.
I like the track Shawn versus Flair with DJ Premier production. I like how it's a little bit more minimal. All the tracks on here is pretty minimal because it's pretty much the same loop, just looping on forever.
Yeah, the production doesn't really progress a lot over the course of a track.
But Shawn versus Flair is a bunch of simple drums, and it really works together, and some retro scratches because it is DJ Premier. But it highlights a different point in this album, and I like the difference. We get a little bit more boom bappier moment, I guess, if that's a term. We get that for a second. And moving on to a different style and shade of hip hop, from this more smoky area to this more like raw, flat terrain when it comes to the production.
Next track, Party with Pop Smoke, with longtime Griselda or Westside Gunn collaborator Keisha Plum coming on here. This is actually produced by Tyler the Creator, which also surprised me, and it's dedicated to Pop Smoke. Both of them, Westside Gunn said in an interview that both he and Pop Smoke at the same time were saying that they were like the new king of New York, and I guess they like never met or never were like good friends or anything. But when he died, I think that kind of struck a nerve with Westside Gunn. Like there was no bad blood there or anything. Keisha Plum's verse, you were saying earlier, she comes into more of her own like character on this than she has in previous collaborations.
Yeah, she's in her verse talking about how she's attracted to criminals, and she's like has affiliation for this like dangerous crime life. Usually when she collaborates with Westside Gunn, she comes off as like a chorus, like a Greek chorus, like an omniscient figure, someone like detached from the narrative. And in this, she's been very much her own person, which I thought was nice because they've collaborated so much. Like, I think every Westside Gunn record we've done so far has had a Keisha Plum sample.
Yeah.
And this time it was like nice to have a different style from her because we pretty much get the same thing. And I always think they collaborate really well because she's such a, like, she very much matches the production, like the smoky atmosphere, while Westside kind of like contrasts it. That's why it like makes Westside so special. She's the realization of the production. She's kind of is this smoky figure that kind of knows all.
The end of this has a Westside Pootie outro with Westside Gunn's daughter talking to the audience, and she's right, I am still broke. How did she know? This would be an awesome outro to the album, but I don't think that it would have fit the theme super well. And so it actually ends up with the ending track, La Djoliba, with Cartier Williams. This is named after a Parisian restaurant that specializes in Senegalese and West African food. And this track really was a pleasant surprise at the end. So Westside Gunn's verse I thought was awesome, but the very end of this is actually Cartier Williams doing a tap dance solo, and it's just the audio from it, which I thought was... it just kind of blew me away. I've never thought of tap dancing as like an audio art, but it was really cool how Gunn made that into just another instrument. Like there's actually like an art to the rhythm of the taps instead of just watching them do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it connects like art and culture back into his hip hop, which makes it really unique. And also I like how he introduces them by saying tap dance on the coke. I thought was hilarious. Also, I forgot to mention the line on French toast. It's something along the lines of I'm eating French toast, but you guys don't call it French toast in here because again they're in France. Some of the wrestling lines on here are hilarious, like on Claiborne kick with I hit the brick with a Claymore kick, rock Liz Claiborne. I thought was hilarious. Walle's line, we impact the culture like Eric Bischoff. There's a ton of smart wrestling references in here, whether it's the HBK sample or there's a $1 Million Mail-In sample where he's getting his the $1 Million Championship being crafted, which I thought was really cool. Like, I think with his like little outro segments or samples, they really fit him this time around. Like, I remember sometimes on his previous projects he would always have these like little samples that really wouldn't fit what he was talking about, and now this time they all highlight him as an individual and they feel interconnected, which is very nice. Like, one doesn't feel like it disrupts the mood. It's like constantly going with the theme of the ideas, whether it's about wealth or the fact that Westside can't really sing. I think they really highlight his personality, which I found to be really individual. And I think also going with the production, like again I mentioned, it's very simple loops, which has been a problem before, where I felt like these loops didn't really lead anywhere, and I think they fade out a little bit too much to more of my liking. But that was really only on the first listen where I really didn't care for the fades outs. I think as time goes on, this album really flows more well than I initially thought it did. I also think the use of the minimal samples, the fact that they are so distinctive makes them more interesting to me than the replication of what those samples would be like on what would Machine Gun do when Derringer and Beat Butcher tried to replicate a Griselda project without samples. So this time going back to the samples and what made them so distinctive, I thought was the coolest part. But overall, I think Westside Gunn highlights himself the best on any project before. I think this is what I really wanted in cohesion compared to his last previous projects. I think he like connects everything together pretty well. Like, his personality is well defined on this. There's a ton of surprises, tons of interesting features that separate themselves. Like, the features don't blend in this time around. Like, Freddie Gibbs, Joey Badass, Tyler the Creator all stand out on this, and like previous features that he's had before, Benny, Conway, Keisha Plum, all are different this time around than they have been on previous projects.
Yeah, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that this is going to be Westside's breakout album here. He must have pulled out all the stops, every favor that he had to get every production credit, to get every feature on here. He's got some really big names. The chemistry he has with his features is incredible. He knows exactly what he's going for. He doesn't have to sacrifice his personality to reach a more mainstream audience. Like, they have finally come to him. And I definitely think that he's going to be reaping the benefits of this for a long time.
Keep in mind, those scores are futile and meaningless. Right now, I think this is a 9. I really enjoyed it. This is his best project to date, and I really can't say anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to agree.
And I hope we hear more from Westside Gunn in the future. Apparently, he has a project with Madlib coming out soon, so I'm really excited for that, if that does come into fruition. Also, this is his last year for music, apparently.
Is that what he said?
He says he's not going to make any music. He's going to retire after this year. If you want to find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, you can find us at Anthony Todd. If you want to find us at Patreon, it's patreon.com/The Anthony Todd Show. And you can find us at Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Podcasts by searching The Anthony Todd Show in your favorite podcast browser. Until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see ya, boyos.
See you later, everybody.